seems to be working at the moment. There's all kinds of little things that can go wrong, you know. Even not plugging in the computer or not having batteries. Those little things can happen. God grant me the serenity. That's it, Alex. Serenity. Serenity to accept the things I cannot change, courage to change the things I can, and the wisdom to know the difference. Yes, okay. That's the key. Serenity prayer. In AA, they use that all the time, you know. And it's so perfect somehow. All right, let's see what we have. Now, I have a feeling that I should spend a little more time on the fourth initiation rather than the fifth, sixth, and seventh. At least being a member of the fourth kingdom and a group of fourth monads, we have some relation to this fourth initiation. Think about what our sign is as a monadic group. We are ruled by the same ray that rules the law of sacrifice. Fourth ray. If you study the laws of the soul, you will see the law of sacrifice is ruled by the fourth ray. And now, to make matters worse, our sign as a group of monads is Scorpio. Now, Scorpio knows something about sacrifice, wouldn't you say? Scorpio is where you relinquish what is lesser for what is greater. If you happen to be a good third-rate type, you save some money, and instead of spending the money, you invest the money, and then, even though you can't use it, it comes up with something more later. That's what Scorpio is all about. The giving up of lesser things for greater things. The pairs of opposites is configured and understood by the fourth ray. Let's just say that one of them is the lesser of the pairs of opposites and one of them is the greater. Give up the lesser for the greater. DK says that would mean you were living according to the essential. And he says, do that. And of course, so many of us, and I include myself here, we don't always put first things first. You know, I remember, I think I told you that I was studying this material 50 years ago. Yes, 50 years ago. Or just about. And it said that those who want to express their soul, which is a perfectly good thing, cannot be used to prepare for the reappearance of the Christ. I think I had to sit down, you know, or something. It was a big statement. If you're interested in your own, exclusively, let's say, self-expression from your higher soul powers or whatever, it's not the same thing as the sacrifice required to do exactly what the hierarchy has to do for the divine plan, which was to prepare for the reappearance of the Christ. So there's more and more sacrifice at every step until you just give everything. Yes, dear. Hold on. Let's make sure you get, there, you're on.
Yeah, now. I was thinking this is really, really important statement to think about it, because if you think of that how many advices you have been getting during your own little life, only this, 60 years, 70 years, how many advices your friends and all kinds of people are giving you what you should do. And this is something about that every one of us, we have to know about it. Where we need to serve. What is that thing where we need to serve, and why hierarchy is saying that they are interested of these of little people, because they have the correct heart attitude. There's something about this, what I am understanding at the moment, why Christ needs those. If you think about yourself and you try to create a group, so how many of those are really willing to do what the group needs? What is that work? What comes, because it is so that work always will teach us what it needs. How many are willing to do that? Because what Christ needs at the moment is groundwork, and not about these shining stars. They come maybe later, but at the moment it is about those who have a stamina to continue and cultivate themselves, that they are ready to work according to those impulses of the need. And that's why I think it is a huge thing to contemplate about that, when one has gained a lot of skills and you can do many things which are wonderful, but is that, when we think about the larger group, is that really what is needed now? Big thing to think.
Yeah, DK says a funny thing. He says, so often it is the non-spectacular person who really makes the grade. Whereas the person, who has all these abilities, it's a bit like the story of the tortoise and the hare, the turtle and the rabbit. The rabbit has everything except one thing, and that is the persistence. See, so DK is looking for a lot of non-spectacular people to do this work and spread it in humanity. Yeah.
Yeah, and one clamors is about numbers. That it is that human mind cannot help its functioning. It is so occupied about the outer things that how many are the numbers. We need to reach numbers, but if the group which is working is not doing their job in that, like for instance this kind of steady rhythmic meditation together, there one starts to see already how many things it is that, well, I have to go there, I have to do that. Yes, sometimes, but when we start to learn the rhythms of the life, then we change our own life according to that, where we need to be. And not so that the greater group is waiting that when one has gone to the dentist or one has to go to a movie or something like that.
Yeah. Okay, I'm just trying to, I'm really trying to make this function. And somehow I'm trying to get what's on this on this screen over to this screen. But anyway, let's just assume that it's going to happen somehow. All right, so let's look at a few of the things that he says. In the East, perhaps the great renunciation is not quite so bloody as in the West, because we have the connection here with crucifixion. They call it renunciation in the East and crucifixion in the West, and we associate it with death and torture. And DK says neither concept is the true one. Neither concept gives the true understanding. And finally, it did work. I just had to wait a little bit and So for every Aries type, you have to learn to be patient. Okay, so now symbols fight with each other. It's an amazing thing, you know, even though the cross is a great astronomical symbol, people bring it right down to a low level. And then we have the star and the crescent, and the star and the crescent are fighting with the cross. It doesn't make sense because everything is needed. It's Venus and the moon. See, and Venus is supposed to be the winner over the moon. So this AAB is telling us crucifixion means to fix on a cross. Now, look, we're all on a cross, just psychologically, spiritually, and if we really start to study DK and the work of the hierarchy, it's a signal that we are making the transition from the last part of the mutable cross, you know, Gemini, Virgo, Sagittarius, Pisces, onto the fixed cross. When we are a real disciple, when we are a true aspirant, and remember that every true aspirant has taken the first initiation, then we can say, I am standing on the fixed cross. So let that be our goal. Sometimes we kind of, you know, go back and forth. Just like with a planetary ruler. Suppose I tell you in the age of Aquarius, Uranus will be very important for everybody, but Jupiter will rule for disciples. Jupiter in relation to Aquarius. But people go back and forth, until they fix themselves on that cross. And they don't get off that cross anymore, which means they always deal with those four energies and trying to do better and better, understanding, receiving, expressing those energies. One day we want to have complete contact with the monad until we actually become that monad. Before that, complete contact with the soul until we know ourselves to be the soul. That's where we are now. Now, when you are an initiate of the fourth degree, you know yourself to be the spiritual triad. That's the real ego. That's the real soul. So here he talks about the crosses, which I think is very interesting. You know, there's so many interesting things. At the most human beings are emotional, maybe 80%. They are fixed, they are polarized in their emotional vehicle. The mutable cross, you all know astrology, Gemini, Virgo, Sagittarius, Pisces. The mutable cross governs the three worlds, and this is interesting, and the astral plane in particular, where just about everybody is focused. On this cross, the average man is, quote, crucified until he achieves the needed experience and consciously reorients himself to another phase of unfoldment. In other words, he faces the Orient. He faces the sun. He faces a more radiant sun. We're always facing a more radiant sun. The sun of personality, the sun of the soul, the sun of the monad. Every great being is like a sun. And so when the wisdom and the light come from the east, we reorient, we face the east again, and we face the east again, always for a new and brighter sun. You know, speaking figuratively or poetically. Now, this is what we're interested in. especially, well, why I'm talking about this is there's a very special thing that happens here at the fourth initiation, and it involves the crosses. The fixed cross governs the 5 worlds of human development and conditions the experience of all disciples. And what this means is that the Buddhic world and the Atmic world are always also included. And basically it is called the 5 worlds of human and superhuman evolution. So while you're on the fixed cross, fixed cross, it is lasting until the 3rd initiation and a little beyond. Through the discipline and experiences thus gained while on this cross of the soul, and this is us, this is what we're doing, the disciple passes from one renunciation to another until complete freedom and liberation has been achieved. So the whole story here is we have to give up lesser things to experience the greater things, because otherwise it's like suppose you're in a dark room, and this is oftentimes what Master DK talks about. You're in a darkened chamber, a dark room, and someone says, why don't you open the door, because outside the birds are singing and the trees are growing and the sun is shining and the rain comes and it's a better place. He says, no, I'm going to stay inside my dark room. I like this. I don't want to go outside. This is the story of many, many people who don't want to take the risk to go into an unknown area, even though that area is going to be many times more wonderful than where we are. Sometimes I listen to DK talk about death, and he says this, that we have to discover, these are amazing words, the eternally lovely secret of death. The eternally lovely secret of death. It's like, another room. It's another room. And there's always going to be another space. That's why all temples have to be destroyed. You got a beautiful temple. It has to fulfill its purpose, because beyond it is something even greater, a new temple. Beyond the tabernacle in the wilderness is the Temple of Solomon. Beyond the Temple of Solomon is the Temple of Ezekiel. And beyond the Temple of Ezekiel, who knows what? We don't know. But it's always greater and greater and more beautiful. Yes, Tuya?
Yeah, I think about this exactly like that, about the identification when we are so occupied in our minds about our bodily expression. So we, down to earth, we leave that. We must use that. But then when we need to really think about it, if there has been experiences that you have been near death experience yourself, or some your family member, or that you have fought for life. So when last year when Michael was in coma in the hospital, and there was this experience in my life so profound, and I have said that I fell in love with death. It's something, again, when we think about those moments of difficulties, that we are really on our knees, the same way when you cannot do anything. This greater life is just above you or within you, and beside you, come to meet you, and then it's really the experience was about this extreme beauty of life, a majestic life. So what DK says, I think it is exactly about that, because then we finally can really be in life. We are with that life, this great life, and because there is nowhere to go but to land in the life, in that spirit we are. And this illusion with the body, what comes, or whatever are the vehicles, is that the outer body, or then the egoic body, or whatever body, but
it's always body.
That what we need.
Yeah.
But this who we are is so much greater, is so much vaster, and this spirit, because we are spirit, and those moments when we somehow are touched by it, or it takes us, they are so great, huge, wonderful, like hitting the head. In Zen tradition, that master is hitting your head, that you would get the point, and it is exactly like that. It is just majestic life, and that's why I somehow in my tiny little way can understand what Tibetan might be saying in that. This
I want to ask you, knowing what Tuya just said about Zen practice, what planet do you think is involved? Yeah, well, that's part of it, I'm sure. And I was thinking about good old Vulcan, the hammer, the staff. You're thinking too much. Bang, because you're just going around and around and around in your thoughts, and the intuition, the Uranus can't get in. See, so hit them on the head, and they stop and say, oh. There's even a thing called Zen sickness. The candidate gets so upset about not being enlightened that they just go into this feverish state, and finally it subsides. And the old story is that even a fly can be the enlightener. We read about, what was it, one of the great Tibetan sages, was it Padmasambhava? Someone like that, enlightened by a fly. Well, you never know. I mean, it's like the old mystics, they say, if you can see something in God, it's so different than just seeing it in the normal world. So any little thing that's not worth anything, if seen in God, is worth more than all the treasures that are not seen or understood in God. So it's the profound mystical realization.
Yesterday we were in this symbolic meditation when we went through the third decree, or we were studying it. There was something to remember about the body, how important is the body. That in the body we gain the enlightenment, and that is the story which is about the Mary who is glorified by the Christ. So there's all of that because the outer is needed, the form is needed. Otherwise we would not have that, if the God would not be looking that the form is needed. And in that form all these secrets are happening, the mystery is happening, but it has to be glorified. Think about what Mary is glorified, and that's the goal.
We cannot leave anything out. That's the big second ray thing. You've got to include everything. Include it all. That's another pill. Include whatever says the Tibetan, naught is but me. And he means naught. Nothing is, but it is me. Nothing. I was walking with my son one day, and he's kind of a philosopher, and I was trying to explain this, and we were, talking, and we came upon a place where they were just fixing the road. And you put the black tar down on the road. We call it asphalt. And so he said, I'm saying, well, everything is us. And he said, even the asphalt? He thought he was making a joke. But yeah, even the asphalt. I think I'm going to write a little story one day called Even the Asphalt. You can't leave anything out, good or bad. It's all what we are. Not individually, but it's what we are essentially. Now, how do you get to that? So I've had these programs called Identify as Being. And I get excited, then I do it for about 2 or 3 months, and I have other things, and I come back to it. But that's what we have to learn how to do. Get beyond saying, here I am, this is what I am, and we enter a different state of realization. Well, anyway, it's certainly happening to the 4th degree initiate. So we are giving up one thing after another. Now, I'm sure you all have experiences of giving up lesser things for greater things. Only at the time, you probably thought you were giving up greater things for lesser things. That's how it works. Everything that we've been attached to, we say, oh, I can't give that up. That's so important to me. And it turns out that it's not that important. And that something else comes in that is more important. I've made some decisions in my life, painful, and whatever I was giving up looked so big, and then it started to shrink and shrink and shrink and shrink when the new possibilities dawned on me. So it takes a lot of courage to give up what we are attached to, because it's glamour. We make it too big. In my own mind, I've made glamour some kind of easy thing to understand. It's either too big or too little. I just really want to understand glamour, I'm making little things too big and big things too little. I'm out of proportion. So inevitably, proportion comes along, and then you have humility, an adjusted sense of right proportion. Now look, here we are taking the 3rd initiation. We did that yesterday, right? Okay. We did that, yeah, yesterday. So, now we're talking about the cardinal cross. And the cardinal cross, Aries, Cancer, Libra, Capricorn, governs the master of the 5th degree as he passes through the remaining 5 initiations. 5, 6, 7, 8, 9. The master has to pass through 5, and the cardinal cross governs him. But the 4th initiation, and this is what I want us to somehow understand, the 4th initiation is, curiously enough, governed by neither the fixed cross nor the cardinal cross. You're on your own. Dark night of the soul, the whole thing. The disciple is descending from the fixed cross and trying to find, where is the cardinal cross? I want to get on the cardinal cross. And it is this transition period and experience which governs him. And it's a difficult period of no man's land. I don't know where I am. I'm lost, really, on neither one of the great crosses. It might therefore be noted that there are 3 initiations which test the disciple as to knowledge and experience, the first, the second, and third, and then there comes the initiation of transition, followed by 5 initiations which the Master undergoes on the Cardinal Cross. Now look, there is already an initiation called transition. Do you know which one it is? I'm going to show you if I can possibly make this work. I always like it when you hit the keyboard and a letter or number appears. Here it is. And you see the numerological connection. Do you see transition? And maybe it just is coming up now, right? Transition. Initiation number 8. I go to the astral plane, I come back from the astral plane. I go to the astral plane, I come back from the astral plane. Cosmic astral. Like this. I'm making my transition onto the cosmic astral plane. Now notice how this works. We were just talking about transition in terms of the 4th initiation. Well, look at the numerology. 2 4s are 8. There's a relationship there. So the 1st, 2nd, and 3rd initiations are on the fixed cross. And if you're going to be in the world of initiation, it's got to be or the world of wisdom, and you have to be on the fixed cross. You can't do it otherwise. You do not take the big initiations on the mutable cross. You take something, a little preparatory initiation, another little preparatory initiation, but it's not the same thing as the great monastic initiations, which begin on the fixed cross. Okay. And then comes an initiation of transition, but later on, another transition, even higher. The 4th initiation leads you to become a true member of the hierarchy, a real master. The 8th initiation makes it possible for you to go to the cosmic astral plane and prepare for your big journey on the way of higher evolution. So sometimes things are called by the same name, and they're not the same thing. For instance, if you talk to any Christian and you ask him, when did the resurrection occur? Well, which resurrection? You know, Christ was resurrected, so he died, he went into the tomb, and he rose from the dead, and he talked to his disciples. That was resurrection. Later will come the judgment day, and all. How would you like to be? I often think about this. Would you like to have the body you now have for all eternity? Forever. I think there might be some limitations in that. So, you know, the pictures of the resurrection, the trumpet will sound, not jazz trumpet, but a good, solid military trumpet, and all the graves will open up, and all of those dead bodies will rise in order to be judged and converted into some form that's more like, it's a ghastly picture. It's just a horrible picture. And no, not true. Not true. But how is it that people can believe it? Because they identify with the body. This is the whole thing. And this is what occultism and Raja Yoga teach. Disidentify with the body. and with all of the other personality vehicles. Finally, disidentify with the causal body. Keep on disidentifying until you get your final body, which is the universe itself, and then disidentify with the universe. And that's another thing. And that will put us on the other side into the world of true infinite reality. Okay. So anyway, this is how DK sees it. You're on your own, and I think Jesus, on the way up to Mount Golgotha, had to carry his own cross, and someone helped him. I forget how that story goes, but it's a beautiful story. But he had to, it's very heavy. He had to drag his own cross, and they're beating him and all the rest. That's the fourth initiation. You're not supported in the usual way. You're on your own. You have a dark night of the soul. The suffering of humanity dawns upon your soul, like we read the other day, and you see all the trouble in the human family, and you have to figure out what you're going to do about it. And it has to do then with the bodhisattva impulse. We become a bodhisattva and we turn around and we save. Now, a lot of pilgrims, they carry a staff, a walking stick, right? It's a long trip, carry the walking stick. So some of the Pratyeka Buddhas, they just carry a straight stick. First ray, they're on their way, they get there. The second ray Buddha has a stick that goes like this. This is called a crook. And it's in the old days when you're a shepherd. One of the sheep is wandering somewhere. Come back. Come back. The shepherd's crook. And the bodhisattva has a staff with the shepherd's crook. And in the rules of the road, it talks about how we should have a crook to hold. Maybe it's not for everybody, but there's always going to be, in the Messiah, the great music, there's a song called "All we like sheep have gone astray, everyone to his own way." And it's a wonderful song. They should try cats sometime. Talk about trying to get cats to cooperate. But anyway, the sheep have to be kept inside the sheepfold. Now, the little bear and the big bear are called sheepfolds. The lesser ashram and the greater ashram. And we're the sheep. We have to be kept inside the sheep pen, or we're just going to jump out and, diminish our possibilities. All right. So, boy, are we making progress. I think we've done 2 pages here, and maybe not. Well, what's going on that cardinal cross, where you have initiation 5, 6, 7, 8, 9? Well, we're not there yet, okay? On the fixed cross, where we are, we get group consciousness. On the mutable cross, self-consciousness. I'd say a lot of our politicians are still on the mutable cross, as powerful as they may seem. Every once in a while you see somebody who has really made the grade. Like we're told that Abraham Lincoln was an avatar, a racial avatar evoked by the soul of the nation, called forth by the soul of the nation. Now look at Nelson Mandela. It could have been the most horrible thing, the transition. And even now, you have a lot of people pushing for revenge against the white farmers and white whoever, and it's not Mandela anymore. It's ordinary people wanting revenge. And they've been killing the white farmers and so forth in South Africa. But not everybody thinks like Lincoln. It was a great, great man. Now, obviously, there's an initiate, a pretty high initiate, and he's making a big sacrifice for his country. Now, our present president has a very inflated self-consciousness. Maybe a lot of presidents do. But, it's been said sometimes you can't see beyond your own self. We talked the other day, this really handsome young man, Narcissus, he just loves his own image, which he sees in the water, and he just falls in love with it and gets closer and closer, and he falls in and he drowns. So that's that inflated self-consciousness. But if you read the second inaugural address of Lincoln, it's so healing for the North and the South, binding up the nation's wounds with malice towards none and charity for all. This was a high soul. Third degree, even, who knows? Going on to the fourth degree, maybe. Who knows? But on the fixed cross, we start to care about more than ourselves. We really care about our group. We care about our nation. We care ultimately about humanity on the real fixed cross. Now, if we're on the cardinal cross, and that's where, when we take the fourth degree, we're looking in that direction, then the master there is distinguished by universal consciousness, which passes finally into cosmic consciousness, a state of being unknown to you. I love it. Even in the wildest flights of your imagination. In the old days, there were authors, and they talked about cosmic consciousness and all that. Probably just an expanded soul consciousness, but they made it into cosmic consciousness. There's this book called, Cosmic Consciousness. It's by a man by the name of Buck, B-U-C-K-E or something. And do you know, how many are familiar with the poetry of Walt Whitman? Yeah. Oh boy. Now he was Leo Moon, Sun in Gemini, and Taurus rising. And he has a poem, it's 100 pages long, maybe, and it's called Song of Myself. And it's just wonderful. It's not about himself at all, as a limited little being. It's about himself in everybody. And Buck, who wrote Cosmic Consciousness, was one of his disciples. So anyway, a big expansion of consciousness occurs, but it's not cosmic consciousness. Just, we're ignorant, so we call it by a big thing. Some people say, okay, come on over to my house, we're having a cosmic meditation. Okay, to them it's cosmic, but really, in proportion, it's not that. But it's heading in the right direction. So on the cardinal cross, and at the fourth degree, when we have fulfilled our goal by entering the cosmic etheric body of our solar logos, we begin to look towards cosmic consciousness, and he says, the first hint of the growth of cosmic consciousness comes when the disciple passes through the sixth initiation of decision. So he determines then, by means of his enlightened will and not his mind, which of the 7 paths he will decide to follow. And by the way, there are now 9 paths. Go to page 412 of the Rays and the Initiations. You discover 9 paths. He doesn't tell you much about anything about the other 2. So anyway, he makes the decision at the initiation of decision, and from that time on, the consciousness of the greater life, which enfolds our planetary logos, as he enfolds humanity within his consciousness, increasingly controls the attitude, the awareness, and activities of the Master. So in a way, we're sort of talking about initiation 4 and 5 here in a loose kind of way. What happens after you have a supernova? Everything explodes. Can you see through all the debris? Maybe not. So the transition period between initiation 4 and 5 is clearing away the results of the explosion at the 4th degree. And then, when you can see, what's the name of the 5th initiation? Remember? The revelation. So you have the, what is number 3? It's the transfiguration, enlightenment, illumination, satori, you know. Then comes crucifixion, renunciation. Then comes revelation. And it's interesting what is revealed. What would you think might be revealed to the Master at the initiation of revelation?
Well, there are, in initiation process, there are always these few revelations, which are just expanding and expanding. So this is certainly about the how one is related to the greater plan, and that what is in the mind of Sanat Kumara, revealing. He revealed that, and he talks about these very complicated things, how the revelation is consisting the mysteries of the earth scheme, how the Master is related then to this globe, and the what does he say? The globe and the earth scheme, and how it is related, his particular
there are many secrets
to the evolution of the solar logos. So it is a huge revelation of that part.
Remember, the sun is the symbol of sight. Now you've got, and the 5th ray is ruling vision. Now you've got the 5th initiation. So it's the will to rule, and what's the other will? The will to know? Not exactly. Will to rule, will to illumine. Will to illumine. So you see a lot at the 5th initiation, and the main thing you see is the 7 paths before you.
You know, I'm wondering about this when we think about the monadic plane and then the 5th plane. So there must be something in relationship to 5th plane, some kind of vehicle.
Well, there is.
Vehicle, we'd say. I'm just thinking about these planes when we move towards the kingdom of souls, then the egoic lotus is moving also its position, and then I think that it has to happen something in relationship to the atomic plane, that there must be something how the movement is also happening in that initiation, because now we are perfected. He says the evolution of senses ending to the third plane, but it cannot be that plane. I think it has to be the second of the atomic plane. What do you think?
Well, in an old Masonic paper, which DK gave to some of his students who were Masons, there is a vehicle on the third subplane of the atomic plane. And it gets destroyed, just like the causal body does. And then you can go into the monadic plane.
Yeah, because it's like that we move really into the different kingdom. It's said that when we move to the sixth plane, we become planetary lives.
Yep.
When we are Johans, we are planetary lives. Under that, we are still like humans.
Right. They are no longer men as are the masters, but have linked themselves with the great council in the highest secret place. So they linked with Shambhala. They are a planetary life. So all of our spirituality is a moving up and at the same time down this cosmic physical plane. Even the Christ, even the Buddha are still evolving on the cosmic physical plane. So that's a long period before us, before we fulfill our spiritual potential. There was a fellow, nice guy, he comes to the conference. For the last several years, he's been a master and has taken the 5th initiation. Last year, he took the 7th initiation. Just like the Christ and the Buddha, only he probably finished it. What do I say? Hey, it's nice to see you here. What do I say? The lack of proportion. When we study the material, we have needs. We have needs to be more than we are. We don't want to see ourselves the way we are. Now, at the 4th degree, you really see yourself as you are. The man who thought he was taking the 4th initiation might have been taking the 2nd, and DK said, no, 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 no. If you're taking the 4th initiation, you see everything clear-eyed. Now, right now, you're overwhelmed by emotion, and you're mad at your students, and they're mad at you, and you're swept off your feet by glamour. That's not the 4th initiation. And then it's a big privilege, too. You can't just say, oh, yeah, I want to take the 4th initiation. It has to be granted to you that you are ready to do that. So we do have a future here, and we will move forward to an understanding of what it means to renounce everything we thought we were, only to discover that those are just our instruments and we are really something else. Let's see if there's any...
I would like to ask one question. Do you remember any occasion in your life that you have really smelled the glamour and felt the energy?
Smelled glamour?
Yeah.
Or smelled the monad?
No, don't go there.
Don't go there yet, okay.
Have you been in situation? Because when we say everything is glamour still in our lives, but there is like glamour which belongs to that evolutionary stage. But then there is so really, really glamorous things which is related to spiritual life. I want to define still that. So okay, what is that kind of a smell? What is that kind of sense quality? because I was
smelling glamour.
Nee.
Not like vinegar. I don't know.
Yes,
what is it?
Yeah. So that you can smell that, yeah?
What did she say?
Stinky. More stinky. Stinky.
What is stinky?
The smell. Stinky.
Oh, stinky. I was thinking of Helsinki. Okay, yeah, stinky. It's like a dog or a cat has been living in the same place for a month.
Well, no, it's really different. It says, I was once in giving a lecture, and there comes this kind of, bless his soul, but so clamored person about the importance of human being. How all the gods are almost bowing to humans because the human being is taking such a sacrifice of coming here, but in real sense they are the highest thing in the whole cosmos and so forth. And his eyes, it was like veils after veils in the eyes. And this force, I've sensed that it is like tingling around my aura when this comes. It's like a little needles, and I'm sure that every one of us, we have a different senses, but it was like I don't have any air. It started to squeeze my neck, and it's like afterwards you want to throw up. So I mean, really, those kinds of clamors which are dangerous. They not this normal clamors what we all have, but I mean those which are really dangerous clamors to your path, because they are so off, and this kind of thing can make you, because you are swept by it so strongly that there comes no mirror. When you think about Venus, who has the mirror, and you have to mirror yourself, the soul is mirroring oneself. So if there is missing that part in oneself, that everything can go through, and particularly that one is so extremely important and extremely high, and nothing can work without you. They are dangerous, because then you are never ever looking yourself that you would advance or you would correct yourself, because everything, that's why goes, you are so important that you are taking a sacrifice. And
it's wild, isn't it? I think, you can encounter some of these forces on the astral plane which are very unpleasant. And you can encounter terrible smells. And I think the scariest dream I ever had was I opened a door, and nothing was there, and I heard this chord of music, which was the most terrifying chord I ever heard in my life. I couldn't reproduce it, but it embodied everything that was evil. And, it was sound. Just very different from the beautiful angels are singing. It was just like, it took me back. I woke up immediately, had to get out of there.
Yeah. T.K. says about that I and Alice have a horror
of glamour.
Of glamour.
Yes.
And there is that experience, even though this, when one tells about it, it does not sound so dangerous. But when I was near it, everything in me wanted to escape, because that was the horror in me of the power of that something what had been manifested.
I'm just going to read a little more, because in order to stay on schedule, we have to stop in a few minutes. The crucifixion initiation has a major instructive feature. This is preserved for us in the name which is frequently given to this fourth initiation, the Great Renunciation. one tremendous experience is given, vouchsafed, given, to the initiate at this time. One tremendous experience. He realizes, because he sees and knows, that the Antakarana has been successfully completed, and there is a direct line of energy from the spiritual triad via the Antakarana to his mind and brain. I suppose especially from the Buddhic level. And then you see something horrible. Okay. At least frightening. This experience, this brings to the forefront of his consciousness the sudden and appalling recognition that the soul itself, the egoic body on its own level, and that which for ages has been the supposed source of his existence, and his guide, and his mentor, is no longer needed. His relation as a soul-infused personality is now directly with the monad. So the angel of the presence has done its own job. The solar angel has done the job. And we are connected up with what we really are, the monad. He feels bereft. It means like everything is taken away from you. He feels bereft and is apt to cry out, as did the Master Jesus, but not the Christ, the Master Jesus, my God, why hast thou forsaken me?" Now, what happens? Now, what's really interesting. Not only is the causal body being destroyed, but the solar angel is leaving him. And he's a god. And the solar angel is going back to the heart of the sun. Or maybe to the central spiritual sun. The solar angel is returning to the solar logos. And that's what it means. My God, who I've been consulting with all of these lives, what does my angel say, etc.? It's going away, and I'm on my own. Again, I'm on my own. That's the characteristic of this fourth initiation. Heaven is not helping me. Earth is not helping me. Humanity just kicked me out. And heaven is not yet responding to me. And I have to do it myself. Fortunately, we can. My God, why hast thou forsaken me? But nevertheless, he makes the needed renunciation. He dares to do it. And the causal body, the soul body, is relinquished, given up. This is the culminating renunciation and the climaxing gesture of ages of small renunciations. All the little ones we say, I'll give that up. Yes, I'll give that up. All the little ones prepare for this moment. Renunciation marks the career of all aspirants and disciples. Now notice what he says. Renunciation consciously faced and understood and consciously made. So, do we have any thoughts that we would, like to examine in this respect? Any thoughts, any reactions? We're all going to go through this, and we're on our own, and we become the monad, which we always have been, and the solar angel has done a big service by linking us up that way, and then we handle it ourselves. Any thoughts that you would like to bring forward? Any questions that you have? And that would apply to whomever. There are some here watching with us. If you have a question or a comment, you can write it down. Does it help you to see ahead? To know where you are going? Is it better than you're going to die and go to heaven or hell? What do you think? I think heaven could turn into a hell because it's just a whole lot of sameness about playing the harp and wearing a robe. Some people literally, not everybody of course, but they believe this. Harps and robes, just like an angel. There was this funny movie with Albert Brooks and Meryl Streep, and on the day he got his new Mercedes, he looked down to change the CD, and he crashed into a truck. So next thing you know, he's in heaven. And you can eat all you want and never get fat. You can do all kinds of earthly things in this heaven. But an implied reincarnation. It was very interesting. Because the idea was they would always send you back on the train. You had to go back. But Meryl Streep kind of...
He was balancing.
He was what, dear?
Before he was balancing.
Yeah.
Something
he had to do to fix. Of course, he was nowhere near a fourth degree initiate, believe me. He was a very funny guy, but he wasn't fourth degree. So finally, but they decided he didn't have to go back after all. At the end, Meryl Streep helped him somehow, and he could stay. Now, our vision of the future is pretty dull if you think about what humanity has cooked up for its future. And the beautiful thing about the ageless wisdom, it keeps you going eternally in terms of magnificent possibilities. It's inspiring. You can do those things. You can achieve those things. You are those things. And we can spread the word on that matter. There's many big questions that are not answered. Why does the universe exist at all? And, there's so many different answers to it. And I don't know that any one of them can be understood by what we've got. But the ageless wisdom, which must win the day by the end of the 21st century, has got a lot of great answers that can inspire people, keep them from doing stupid things, keep them from messing up their karma, help them be more helpful to others. The old saying is, you make your bed, you're going to lie in it, right? It's a karmic statement. And the tree you plant now, you will appreciate later because it'll be there, okay? So we just have to realize we are eternal beings on our way to greater and greater glory until we re-become what we always have been. And a question. What's the name of the movie? Which it's been a lot of years, Alex. Albert Brooks and Meryl Streep. And it's about heaven and reincarnation. So I can't answer that. What's it called? Defending Your Life? And it's called Defending Your Life. Okay, she says Defending Your Life. I'm a little hard of hearing. Actually, I'm a lot hard of hearing. So I just want to make sure I get the right word. Defending, right? And he, as it were, he went on trial, just like in the Egyptian mysteries. Osiris is led, well, Tuya knows about this, all about this, but into the chamber of judgment. And if Osiris does not have a heart, which is as light as a feather, the crocodile eats his heart, and back he goes into incarnation.
It's the feather of truth.
Ah.
The Thoth feather of
Thoth.
No, it's a mat. The feather of mat. And
Mat.
Maat has always this feather in her forehead. So if you think about how to distinguish Isis and Maat, that the feather will distinguish it.
Ah. And you know, the Native American people, they have these headdresses, all feathers. It's a link with the Deva kingdom and with the powers on the inner planes that allow you to fly, you know. It's go ahead.
I think when studying the iconography and looking this feather, how it is appearing here and there in different cultures, I think in maybe Atlantean times, it has been much more. There has been something else in the feather, what we don't know anymore, because of those hairdresses, or the feather hairdresses. All of that are telling about that something, and it could be not knowing that. But when you think about this serpent, what is coming from the sun, Quetzalcoatl, in the South American traditions, he is called the serpent, plumed serpent. Is that plume? Plume is the feather, right?
Plume, plume.
So
A plume, a pen, you see.
No, meaning the feather, because when you look the serpent, it's full of feathers. So maybe it is that tradition or something what was coming from Ibis, that where we have the relationship with the sun. So the feathers have some relationship with the sun. Horus is flying to the sun, but all of those traditions with something is flying towards the sun. And when you have them already somehow attached to you, is some kind of sign to you. We can think about this in Hindu mythology, in Buddhist mythology, the feather appears everywhere. And this feather or peacock is that in every single continent, it has been the sign of the initiate, the great teacher. So if somebody brings for you the feather of peacock, that is the greatest honor, because you are looked like a great teacher. And the feather has the eye.
There are so many great pieces of knowledge and wisdom which have apparently been lost, or withdrawn, or held back because they were not used wisely. But if you put it all together, somewhere in humanity is a collection of many, many things which can clarify our way. If we will only use things wisely. What, dear? What?
You have the feather of the swan.
Oh, okay. Okay. Very good. Okay. All right, so that's going to be it for right now. And defending your life. Yep, something like that. That's it. That's correct. I don't know exactly what we'll do after lunch. We'll see. We've been doing some astrology here, but, you know, it's more for the people that are actually right here. And we'll see whether we continue with this. So just check your check this sort of screen and see whether we're going to continue into a number 3 or whether we're going to work a little bit more on astrology. And then we have
at 4.
We have a preparation. We have a purification sauna.
No, I am here at 4 p.m. Was it not so about Isis and Parasat?
Oh, you know what? Is that at 4? I've got the wrong. I'm sorry, I have the wrong. Mercury is retrograde.
Organized.
I'm allowed. Mercury is retrograde.
Okay, yes, it's Mercury.
Tuya is teaching at 4 o'clock. Pallas Athene and Isis. And maybe it looks like we have some discussion of astrology that I think we will keep here unless we decide to discuss it in general. And if we discuss it in general, we'll make a note of it. Then we won't take the personal side of it.
And if it is, then it continues at 2 p.m. So 11 a.m.
Let's say, dear, 2:15. Is that okay? Is that okay? What do you say?
I'm not saying anything.
Okay. That's just so I can be conscious, okay? Continuing at 11:15 GMT, and we will see. Maybe what I can do is just speak about astrology in a general way, because we've been doing charts here for a while, and what we've been doing here, and it may be of interest to you, we have been looking at the first initiation and the second initiation. And we're saying, if I had this chart, my own chart, how would it apply to taking the first initiation? How might it apply to taking the second initiation? With the third, it's a little harder, but it still can be done. And I don't think we need to bother about taking the fourth initiation. Maybe if you have, like this, I know some people like this. The Sun in Leo with Scorpio rising and Pluto square your Sun. Maybe that will get rid of your causal body for you. Okay. All right. So we take a little break, and I'm going to try to put this up on the playlist so you can find it when you go to YouTube. Okay. Thank you very much for...
Are we streaming still?
We are at the moment. Do you want me to turn it off? Yep. I'll just try to get this correct. Turn off the stream for the moment and turn this off.